Yeah. I mean, it's actually kind of funny. You know, if you think of like what is education, like you're basically downloading data and algorithms into your brain, and it's actually amazingly bad in conventional education because like it shouldn't be like this huge chore. Like the more you can gamify the process of learning, the better. Like for my kids, I do not have to encourage them to play video games. Okay, I have to like pry them from their hands, like crack.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
It's like drop that crack needle.
Yeah. You have that problem at your house too.
Yeah,
yes,
exactly.
The crack is addictive.
And I think, unfortunately, like a lot of education is very vaudevillian. You've got someone standing up there kind of lecturing at people, and they've done the same lecture 20 years in a row, and they're not very excited about it. And that lack of enthusiasm, is conveyed to the students. They're not very excited about it. They don't know why they're there. Like, why are we learning this stuff? We don't even know why. In fact, I think a lot of things people learn, probably there's no point in learning them. Because they never use them in the future.
Because who's going to launch a rocket into space? I mean, that's just like, yeah, exactly. That never happens.
Well, you have to say, like, people, I think, don't stand back and say, well, why are we teaching people these things? And we should tell them probably why we're teaching these things. Because a lot of kids just in school kind of puzzled as to why they're there. And I think if you can explain the why of things, then that makes a huge difference to people's motivation. Then they understand purpose. So I think that's pretty important.
Well, oftentimes business education today, and I see it all the time, kids come out of college, the best colleges, Wharton and Harvard and Stanford and some of the great business schools, and they'll come out and they won't have practical experience. There's too many case studies that aren't practical.
The people who are doing the work that we care about are figuring out what to do next, not following the person who told them what to do next. And the problem with most colleges is they are high school, but with more binge drinking. The entire purpose of a good university is to give you a foundation to fail, not a foundation to get an A. And if you graduate from college with straight A's, you have to do some serious soul searching as to why you chose to spend your time doing that.
You know, we ask kids that are 16 to 18 years old to make $100,000 debt decisions when they go off to university. And they are not prepared for that. They don't know what they're getting themselves into. They just assume, okay, I'm going to pay 4 years of education at $25,000 a pop, and when I come out the other side, somehow I'll be able to pay it back.
Right.
That's not how life works anymore.
It's like the newspaper industry, right? More printing presses, more big buildings, right? Makes us look grander. We have brains that we're putting them out there. There's a point of diminishing returns in terms of what it's worth for a college education and how much debt you're willing to saddle yourself with.
I think having the flexibility to explore a lot of different things, which you can do when you're in college, which is one of the amazing things about being in college, is you can work on all these hobbies and code a lot of stuff and try a lot of different things. It's this amazing flexibility that I think most people take for granted. And once you decide, okay, I'm going to start a company and I'm going to do it with someone else, you immediately now need to convince someone else if you want to change your mind on something. And I think people really undervalue the option value and flexibility. I think explore what you want to do before committing is really like the key thing, and keep yourself flexible. And no, I think that's. I
agree.
Yeah.
In my experience in business, there is very little difference, if any, between a very high-priced business education and what's available for a lot less money. I went to the University of Nebraska at Lincoln my last year in college. I went to Wharton for a couple of years before that. I learned just as much at the University of Nebraska as I did at Wharton. You need to be prodded in the right direction, but an awful lot of it is self-taught. It isn't necessary to pay $30,000 or $35,000 a year to go to some big-name school to get the education at all. I mean, if you're going to learn accounting, which is probably the most important course you'd take in business, if you're going to learn accounting, you can learn accounting absolutely as well, in my view, going to UNO as going to Harvard. I mean, I see. I'd bet on that, and so.
And education is very good at training people to do the same things that we've done over and over again. And I think there's always a question what the nature of the educational good is. You can say it's an investment good, where you're investing in the future. You can say it's a consumption good, like college is a 4-year party. I think most of the parents and students think of it actually as an insurance policy, where you're buying this really ever more expensive insurance so that the students don't fall through the really big cracks in our society, and we should be asking some big questions why the insurance costs are going up and up like that. And if you were the president of Harvard or Stanford, if you wanted to get a lynch mob of students, alumni, faculty to come after you and try to lynch you, what you should say is something like this. You know, we live in this much larger, more global world. We offer a great education to everybody, and so we're going to double or triple our enrollment over the next 15 to 20 years. And people they'd all be furious because the value of the degrees comes from this massive exclusion, and what you're really running is something like a Studio 54 nightclub.
I hated school. I really hated school. I hated school, generally, right? Because it was this instruction following thing. Now, I bet you it's probably also because I wasn't good at it. And some people, like I've got a great conceptual memory and a terrible rote memory. So if I have a story, I could tell you year by year kind of what happened within a story, within a context. But if I was to go into, like a memory-based learning, it's terrible. I have a terrible rote memory. Ego barrier is the worst thing. And if we were raised differently, just imagine in the schools that all along that people will always say, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody has weaknesses. The key is really to understand what your mistakes and weaknesses are so that you can learn from them, right? I think punishment is a terrible concept. Punishment means that you made a mistake and you're being punished. I think instead of punishment, every time somebody makes a mistake, you should say the only thing that you need to do to get out of your punishment is first think, what kind of mistake was that? So if I'm in a situation that's like that again, how would I deal with it differently, not to make that mistake? So that learning should come from the mistake, not punishment, because you're teaching people not to make mistakes. Where's where the learning comes from, not the appreciation that if you keep doing this over and over again, you're going to keep encountering the same outcomes.
What does your college degree mean? It means you got an education. It means you have more knowledge in a specific subject, vocation. It means you may have more expertise in what your degree is in. But what's it worth? In the job market, out there today, we know the market for college graduates is more competitive now than ever. Now, some of you already have a job lined up. You've got a path where today's job is going to become tomorrow's career. But for most of you, the future is probably still pretty fuzzy. You don't have that job that directly reflects the degree you just got. Many of you don't even have a job at all. Think about it. You've just completed your scholastic educational curriculum in life, the one that you started when you were 5 years old in kindergarten, up until now, and your future may not be any more clear than it was 5 years ago. You don't have the answers, and it's probably pretty damn scary. And I say that's okay, because that is how it is. This is the reality that many of you are facing. This is the world that we live in.
Did school fail you or you failed school?
School failed me. School's failing entrepreneurs every single day.
Because?
Because it's not built for entrepreneurship. It's built for workers. If you're being taught to play within the lines, and there's nothing being taught that maps to the entrepreneurial market.
We're not saying that nobody should go to college. We're not saying that college is categorically a bad thing. We're not saying everybody should drop out. We're simply saying that too many people are going to college, just like too many people are buying housing and too many tech companies were going public in the late 90s. Doesn't mean there should be no tech companies or no houses. It doesn't mean we should shut down all the colleges, but we need to make this a much more careful, deliberate choice. And what we are hoping to start with this discussion and debate today is a discussion that would encourage all of you to think more about your future. Do not think of education as something that's an automatic ticket to the future. You need to think about it yourself.
The A students work for the B students, the C students run the businesses, and the D students dedicate the buildings.